It's really cold here, and we haven't started really running our heat because it's warming up. So why run the heat, But it's really cold today, and so I had my little space heater on, and I forgot. I meant to turn it off before we started recording. Anyone that's joining us in the live chat, come on in. We're here about to go live with this discussion of episode 7 of this here show. Check. Okay. I've got us all set up on both things, so if you're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to jump right in. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Hitting record. Burping. Sorry, live chat. Can't edit out burps when you are on live. I need one of those fancy cough buttons they have in real radio stations.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially because right now, if any of us cough, everyone's going to freak out.
Right, yeah. I've got a bit of a cough, but it's just because I sang a bunch yesterday. Recorded a music video for my new coronavirus theme song.
Nice.
And that should be up actually in the next next hour. I just filmed the little tag at the end where I go, hey, if you like this, go to da-da-da-da-da. And
cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's going to be silly.
All right.
Okay.
Today.
Sorry, go ahead.
Today on Bingers Assemble, we are talking about Altered Carbon Season 1, Episode 7, Nora Inu. We're taking a nice, happy family stroll back into the life of our hero, looking at his so healthy and so well maintained by the state relationship with his sister, and seeing what happens when they add a lover into the mix. Sweetness, happiness, and joy, all here on Altered Carbon on Bingers Assemble. Right after this ad, we have no control over.
Welcome to Bingers Assemble. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I'm Matthew S. Fox. How are we doing today?
Man, I am doing all right. I kind of kept myself busy the last few days writing and recording a new song that will be up on the Stranded Panda YouTube channel in a matter of hours. So if you're listening to this, it should already be up.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. But that's been consuming. I get it. I'm like a dog with a bone when it's time. When I get a song idea and a video idea, I just keep working till it's done. And at least that's how I am these days. And yeah, it was cool. It was real cool.
That's awesome, man. It's been really great seeing obviously all the artistic stuff you're doing right now has led to this podcast and some other good things. So I'm excited to see where you go.
Thanks, man. How are you?
I'm good. I've got on the one hand, I'm kind of glad we switched back to 3 days instead of 5 days because it was getting a little much. But I also found I was missing it yesterday.
Oh yeah.
There's it's that weird thing where there's so much going on right now, and so I don't really have time to do this every day. But also there's so much going on that I really want the break. So yeah, it was fun to get to dive back into this world a bit.
Yeah, with a really long. Sorry, go ahead.
80 or 90% backstory, which I really loved.
Yes, when it jumped back about the hour mark of this episode, when it jumped back to the main storyline, I was like, oh yeah. That's going on. I was so consumed with what was going on in the flashback storyline. Just a quick rundown of the episode. This is the episode where Kovac has just been saved in the arena by his sister, or at least the sleeve of his sister, and then he goes back and she is working on making sure his sleeve survives, and he is remembering the entirety of their relationship as children, and when they show their relationship as children, how they get separated and how they come back together, and how they learn from Kelchrist Falconer, and and then how Kelchrist and his sister supposedly died. So what was the Battle of Stronghold was that we've been hearing about all this time, which was kind of a crazy thing, because I can't imagine that's what the government told everyone, since people are going into VR. Anyway, yeah, so that's the episode. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot to go over. I want to jump into some of the philosophy stuff first, because obviously that's kind of always where I go. And we started off with I wrote down some quotes and stuff like that this time. Early in the episode, Kovac says, "The danger of dying too many times is you forget to fear death."
Mm-hmm.
And that was such great foreshadowing, because at first it sounds like just an interesting comment about, the whole society that they're living in right at that moment. But then as we learn so much more about Falconer and what her crusade really was all about, we find out that's what what he's actually saying is all those things that Falconer said would come true have actually come true. That all the things that she predicted have happened now. And that was such a wonderful little like a callback, but in advance kind of moment, where I liked the line at the moment, but then once I realized what Falconer was setting up, and that he was now seeing this world, remembering all the things she predicted, it gave it so much power.
I totally agree. Yeah, it was a really wow, I got a mower in the background all of a sudden. Excuse me. Yeah, I totally agree. It's really tied everything together. I mean, this story, we finally understand what Falconer was trying to do and why, which is all great stuff to know. I really love that she's the creator of the stacks. That's like a huge deal and like a really like whoa kind of moment,
Yeah, I think it's Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
One of the nuclear scientists,
I am become
one of the people
death.
who helped invent the nuclear bomb, later felt like incredibly guilty and horrified about what he had created. Now, if I remember, actually, even Einstein didn't work on the bomb himself, but when he realized that his theories were going to be used to create weapons, like, he was also horrified by this.
I literally have it in my notes, the Oppenheimer quote, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds."
Oh, that's cool. I'm so glad that we both went there, because yeah. So yeah, talk about that. Why did that connect for you? Because it seemed like we had the same thought.
Well, part of the reason it connected for me is we just watched Picard, and the destroyer is a theme in that. And and I actually wrote my last song that I wrote for Picard was I have become death, destroyer of worlds. I used that as a quote, so it was like on my mind a little bit.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, that totally connects to what she's experiencing with being the creator of something and then regretting it so much.
Right. And it makes sense, because like the thing that she's afraid of is the corruption of humanity. Basically, is the idea that like you give humans any good thing and they will eventually become this terrible thing. And so to see that happening to her own creation, know.
Well, it's that line she says is beautiful. "Death was the ultimate safeguard for the darkest angels of our nature."
Oh, that was so good.
It's really good.
So let's get into that. Do you think she's right?
I think that in this world, she clearly is right. In that there's no death, but there's also no checks on power. It's kind of like in Star Trek. In Star Trek, they have solved all scarcity, but they've also moved away completely from a economic system that oppresses people, that has that sort of like the vision of Star Trek is that you've solved scarcity so that, and then everyone it becomes an egalitarian society. This is kind of the same thing, where you've given a lot of power, like you've created this amazing technology, but you've done nothing to fix and make it more egalitarian. So it's still the same problems that we have in our system, or the problems of inequality, and just multiplying them over time. So you're not only multiplying the life of a person, but you're multiplying the problems of inequality and pushing everything to its extremes. So in this world, it's for sure right. It's like with this, you'd also have to, like, if you're going to create this world, if this was a possible technology, you'd also need the Star Trek, like, solving of inequality and solving of, the system, changing of the system. So if it were possible to have this world where life is unending, but you also have sort of solve those other problems, maybe this could be okay, but without those things, it's impossible.
I think you're right. I think that would, the economic disparity is a huge part of it. But I also think that there's an extent, and I think that that's her prediction there is 100% borne out in our own world. You know, even without we don't have immortality, but certainly we have that it's possible to get to a level of wealth that you can live without consequences. And we see that somewhat today, but even, like, no, you don't have to look far back in our future to find a time when, people could have enough wealth that they were utterly and completely above the law. And to some extent, we still have that today, absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
But we've also had that much more explicitly at other points in time as well. So I think she's very, very correct there. I'm trying to imagine what that would be like. Is that I think you wouldn't have quite the exploitation, but I do think that there's so much that drives human life based on our understanding of our own mortality.
For sure.
And some of that is terrible things. A lot of the worst parts of, the hate that we have for other people, or for, the fear that we live in of that, some other country or group of people is going to take our stuff. It's all based in the ideas of scarcity and the idea that we won't have enough. And so maybe if you replace all that, then that's okay. But I also feel like just so much of human ambition, of the human desire to create, of the human desire to do things is based on the idea that we have a finite amount of time.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, because she said she wanted to create roads to all worlds, right? That was her idea behind creating the stacks. And it's interesting, given that line we've talked about from the very first episode when he says, what planet am I on? And they go, Earth. And it's an obvious thing. It makes me wonder if this pulling back from other planets has something to do with the idea that the people in power no longer have the ambition to explore because they don't have the finite nature of human existence.
Right. I mean, there's always a sense of like, we can just do it tomorrow. We can do it next year. There isn't any sense
there's no
of
rush.
I only have 40 or 50 years. I also do wonder though, how, So here's my question. Has there been any actual people getting on board a ship and physically going somewhere else? Or has it all just been I don't think it could all be needle casting, because you'd have to figure out a way how to get the needle receptors.
Right.
And stuff
so
on
needle
another planet to
casting,
begin with.
unless you have I guess some sort of drone that could take out a needle cast location, but it seems that you'd only ever be able to needle cast to planets you've traveled to before. So it's kind of this very video game thing, but like having a save point on all these different planets, or a fast travel location at all these different planets. Man, I love how much this show is like a video game. But yeah,
it really is.
It's so I can totally imagine where they'd be like, well, we don't want to commit the resources to going to more planets. We've got the planets that we have, and although by the same token, I can imagine boredom setting in to the point where you're like, well, we need to go explore because it's all there is left. We know enough about this world. So I don't know what the human psyche would do without death.
I'm guessing that there's something else as to why we haven't gone to those other planets that we don't know yet. But yeah, certainly in terms of the death part, I'm with you. And just going back to Falconer herself, I'm always interested in someone's motivations, and I think the character of the sort of just noble leader who believes in their cause, that's always an interesting character, but it's always a little bit hard to. It's almost sort of like the good guy equivalent of a mustache twirler. You don't want someone just doing evil for no reason, but you also the person who's just like, yep, I'm a good person, and I think this is wrong, and I want to fight against it. I always want a little more motivation there.
A virtue twirler.
Yeah, a virtue twirler, exactly. And it's not that I think everyone has to be doing it for bad reasons, or even that she is doing it for bad reasons. I think she's very noble about it. But yeah, this idea that she would, I feel like it did two things. One is it really helped understand why she's doing what she's doing and how important and powerful that is. But the other thing is, there's an extent to which she's basically the closest thing to being in the Matrix of all the characters we know. She
to being
she
the
really has a
one.
fundamental understanding of how the sleeves work and how to work with the sleeves.
Oh, I thought
And so for
this.
her to be literally the inventor of that technology, that all made it really fall into place for me.
Yeah, yeah. The moment they've shown this moment twice. They showed it in an earlier episode when she stops the knife. You know what I'm talking about? She beats the guys with the guns, and then someone throws a knife, and she stops it. Both times this has come up, and I forgot to mention it last time. I really wanted it to stop it by letting her hand get stabbed. Because it would have made that really more effective if she had like reached a hand out and let it stab her hand to protect her stack or whatever, and then it pans over and her line is something like, the sleeve is only a tool. You use the sleeve doesn't, you control the sleeve doesn't control you. And it would have been like a really great, powerful moment, and instead she catches the knife, and I was like, I'd much rather her get stabbed there. That would have been a really cool
that line
thing.
seems to be about being willing to sacrifice the sleeve.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't they do that? I don't know if I'm the only one thinking that, but both times it's come up, I'm like, man, why didn't she? Because it even does a thing where it slow pans around her head to reveal that she's caught the knife. It would have been much more effective if she revealed a bloody hand that had like been stabbed through.
I wonder if they wrote that scene and maybe even originally shot it expecting to do that, and then at some point they saw either like someone in the writer's room was like, let's maybe tone that down a little bit, or they saw the shot and felt like it didn't work or something.
Yeah, it's possible.
Because you're right, it is definitely written as though it was the first. It should have been that it went through her hand or something like that. So yeah. Now I'm really curious.
Yeah. Man, there's just a lot of great stuff in this episode, and a lot of stuff that we haven't seen. Like these, I loved in the Seatac Officers. Man, my voice is. By the way, this is not COVID. My voice is very scratchy because I stayed up singing too late on my music video. Anyway, I really liked like little things, little touches that I'm noticing that I hadn't noticed before, like the Seatac Officers, who we got to know in the very first episode when they come in to attack. I love that they have a full neck guard that goes up behind their head to protect their stack. Like the first time we see them,
that's so good.
Yeah, it's like the first time we see them, it looks very uncomfortable because it looks like kind of like Batman's cowl, but it looks like almost like a serpent, like a snake neck, like this little reptilian thing that goes up all the way up to the back of their head. And it's like, why is that? When I first saw the very first episode, that looks weird. And now it's like, oh, that makes absolute sense. It's funny just how much my perspective on seeing these different design elements has changed. I love that.
It does make you wonder though why more people don't have something like that. So even if it's just like something as simple as like, a collar that goes around your neck that puts like a piece of metal right behind where the stack is.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that.
I think because it would be hard to storytell, but it's an interesting, like, how come these guys have it and nobody else does?
Yeah.
Good.
The Battle of Stronghold ended up being just a biological drop, which we didn't expect at all because we've seen a scene where apparently they still play the Battle of Stronghold as a video game. And that's clearly, I can't believe that the government is not telling them the truth about the Battle of Stronghold. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not telling the public.
But it's very telling. I mean, like, I don't think they would do this today, but I used to play a lot of like, war games, like not like on computers even, but like the board games.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly there were ones that I saw that were from, I mean, like it's been a hobby. It's been around for a long time. And there were ones that I saw in like the 80s or 90s that were already pretty old, I think probably from earlier than then, that were, like the Battle of Little Bighorn, or like other, what we were always taught in American history were these like great brave battles of American cavalry against the savage Indians. And we know now today, or at least there's much more awareness today, that really often that wasn't happening, that often these were, slaughters of First Nations people by American soldiers or something else like that. And so the idea that you could have this battle that becomes incredibly different in propaganda enough to the point that people are building video games out of it, that seems very like horrifying but very believable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We finally find the origin of the white stuff that he's been seeing throughout the entire show. You know what I'm talking about? The white stuff that is falling in the Battle of Stronghold.
Now, what is that ash from? What was what was it that was on fire?
Well, we don't know that it was ash. I'm assuming that it was whatever they dropped to communicate the virus. That's what I was assuming.
Oh, okay. That
Which
could
we've
be it.
kind of assumed it was Ash because we kind of thought it was from this Battle of Stronghold, and he keeps having these flashbacks. We knew it was something painful, but it looks like, we don't know exactly how they do this virus. They said something about it goes directly into the stack, so I assume some sort of download, but maybe it's taken in biologically like a virus.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I just whatever the white stuff was, he comes back to find it all over his people as they're dying, and that's it's really interesting how much he bought into the envoy thing, and now he's dealing with his sister. When she asks, "What are we?" and she says family, and he says envoys at that exact moment. That was really telling, and now. Is he more of an envoy, even though envoys don't exist anymore? They're apparently the last two because Falconer really is dead, at least as far as we can tell. Is he really an envoy now? Still more of an envoy than he is her family. That's going to be I think he is, and I think it's going to be a real source of strife between them.
Well, especially because let's actually get into the sister now, because I certainly think it seems that he feels like the sister betrayed them.
For sure.
And so what because it was such a confusing scene, and so much was happening there. We actually while watching it, we paused it and rewatched. My take on it, and tell me if you think this is wrong, is that the sister had nothing to do with the attack or anything like that. But no, but maybe, like, what exactly was the sister? Because I think clearly the implication is supposed to be that she in some way causes the attack. Basically, she's trying to kill Falconer. She's trying to help the Protectorate kill Falconer to stop Falconer's plans so that she and her brother won't die in 100 years along with everybody else.
It's a really good question. We don't know at what point she became involved with this, but it seems that I had this thought when Falconer was giving her speech about eternal life causing all this disparity. I was like, she says, "I lied to you. The plan is not to win. The plan is to bring down the system. We're not going to become the powerful beings. We're going to, we're not going to throw off the chains of this power system. We're going to stop death. We're going to bring back death." And a lot of people push back on it. And I have to imagine that that's the moment when Rey decides, no, I don't want to be involved in this, because she also keeps pushing back. And so if that's the case, it's very likely she was the one that brought the government down on them. Man, that's rough. That's that's unforgivable. It's one thing if she just traded her life after she knows the battle's coming. That's a different kind of cowardice. But if she is the one that was so committed to living forever that she let herself kill everyone that they knew. And I mean, we already saw at the beginning, and I loved this fight sequence. They had a couple of sequences in this that were wonderful, and you know me, I don't like a fight sequence that much. I don't care. But when they come into contact with each other and they're about to fight each other because he's a Seatac officer and she's a Yakuza, and then they turn back to back and just start fighting both sides, and they become the only two of them against the world. That scene was amazing because it was such a character moment. It built the character that excuse me. It built the characters that they not only love each other enough to turn on these people, but they probably never really connected with these people that they are, fighting. They never found anyone in their lives that meant more to them than each other. And that's just a beautiful moment, but it's also sad. And it seems that in the face of Falconer and the envoys, Rey still never found anyone that she cared about more than her brother and herself.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I like the symbolism of, kind of that they each took these different paths, but that they came back to each other, and they still wind up being closer to each other than either of them is to the worlds that they were in. And I thought that was really beautiful, and I liked that. I had one quibble with it, which is that, and to an extent, this is always the sort of thing that happens, but I feel like often movies and TV shows work a little harder not to make it this obvious. He's part of Seatac, and Seatac are supposed to all be these utterly trained, combat monkeys who are just incredibly good at combat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he and his sister are standing in the middle of the room against all these other people who are approaching from behind cover, somehow none of them can get off a good shot. All of them are jumping out from cover without their weapons ready so that he can kill them before they get a shot off.
Sure.
It was just like, I get what you're going for, but you made this scene so like, hearing you describe it like that held a lot more power for me than watching it, because watching it, I couldn't quite suspend my disbelief because I was just thinking of this going like, the two of you are standing in the middle of a room. You should be shot by now.
Well, I will say it does seem like everyone that walked in the room got shot almost immediately, and so it probably, at least a number of them died before they even realized Kovac had turned. You do get on over the radio after he's killed a few of them. Someone says, "Kovac, what are you doing?" But it does seem like just the confusion of suddenly two people who you have no reason to think they would work together are working together and not fighting for either side. They just have chosen to fight for their own. Just the complete confusion that would cause, I can buy that probably half the people that died would die just out of pure confusion and not realizing who they're fighting. But yeah, like you walk in the room and you see Kovac shoots a Yakuza because he was shooting both sides, and you're like, oh, he's still on our side. Oh no, I'm dead. Like there's a lot of confusion there, so I could buy it. And then they only stay in the middle of the room for, the first 30 seconds, and then they rush into that little cubicle and start using it as a cover. There's. I hear you though.
Here, like I think for the first 3 or 4 people they shoot, I could buy that. It seems that there's like 12 or so, some of whom are actually like up on a balcony and have actual cover.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just rubbed me the wrong way, but it's a pretty small
I hear
note.
you. We're also just supposed to believe that this family that they are a special kind of badass, and partially because of the trauma they suffered. It seems like they are. The government and the Yakuza both saw them as candidates for becoming, top level badasses in their respective organization, because they, just like have something about their trauma and their willingness to fight and their willingness to survive makes them particularly good candidates for this, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm thinking what else. So I feel like we also got a lot more of Kovac's story himself, which I really appreciated. And I feel like, in many ways there's a friend of mine who likes to refer to Han Solo as the grumpiest Hufflepuff, by which they mean that like he's cynical, he's bitter. By the time of the Star Wars movies, we're ignoring a terrible sequel that was made about, or a terrible prequel that was made about him. But like just from his backstory of what we know from the actual movies, we know that he seems like this grizzled guy who just doesn't care about anything but making a buck and maybe getting to score a princess. But in reality, he does care, and that he does deep down still have this desire to protect his friends, to help his friends, to do the right thing. And Kovac has had this really interesting thing throughout most of the show of he comes across as completely, I don't care, the world is fundamentally broken, your problems are your problems. But then as grumpy as he is about it, he keeps going back to help people. And I feel like this backstory really helps me to understand why and where he's coming from in that regard, because it really was a good story of both why he felt such a desire to help people and take care of them. Just watching him not only kill, but like stack kill, like full death, his own father, because his father's threatening his sister. Like that was just such a powerful moment.
I completely agree. It really was. And, it shows his motivations at an early age to, to survive and to help his sister survive. And his work with the envoys, I don't know. It's really interesting. How much of his work for the envoys do you think is him actually wanting to fight the government that hurt him? There's a lot going on. There's the government that's hurting him, and he just wants to fight back because the enemy of my enemy. And as he says, before he takes the turn, he says, "The enemy of my enemy is one more person who might knife me in my sleep." Which I thought was
line.
Beautiful. But he eventually joins forces, and he seems to become a true believer. And I wonder how much of that is his, legitimate gripe with the system, and how much of that is his love for Falconer, which he has. And it's interesting, and also given her earlier descriptions of how you should use people. It makes me really wonder. And in her final moments, she says, "Survive, that's an order." But that's still, it seems like everything she does could be interpreted as a little bit cynical, that she's using everyone she can to accomplish her mission, which her mission is one that she believes in wholeheartedly, and she believes is her responsibility. So, ethically, whatever, maybe it's fair to do, but man, she seems to really, it's hard to tell how much she actually cares for him, and how much, I think the actual romance scene between them probably lends toward maybe she actually was giving into her feelings, or maybe that was just what she needed. She knew he needed to continue working for her like he is,
I don't think she was that cynical. I think it would be more a question of how much is she in love with him versus how much is she, 5 hours away from what she's expecting will be her final death, and just wanting one last moment of real human connection. And I imagine, I think it's probably a mix of those two, and especially because she's someone who is so, she's one of the biggest proponents of, the sleeve is just a sleeve. It's just meat. You're not really connected to it. And so I think, for her to have one last moment of actual genuine human connection that is happening through the sleeves, but is happening, as a real human connection. I've said that phrase too many times now. I can see that being really appealing to her. Going back to his motivations, though, I think you're right that, because remember, he is someone who, as a 10 or I think he's maybe 12 years old, he meets this father figure type at an incredibly traumatic point of his life. And the father figure says, come with me, come into this world. I'm going to show you everything is going to be fine and great. And
some child soldier shit right there.
Yeah. And the thing with child soldiers is they imprint, and they imprint hard, because at that age, that's why it's so easy to manipulate them.
Yeah. And the way he sells it to him, that he's going to be going and doing good and stopping crime. And it says the settled worlds are filled with lawlessness, and you can help me stop it. And it's very, to me, it sounded more like a child vigilante than a solid child soldier. It just reminded me of Batman and Robin a little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially because he's basically saying to him, you can help stop people like your father from hurting people like your sister.
Yeah. But it's interesting to me they chose the mind of a child to come at, though, instead of coming at someone that could have, that really does show their hand, that they're coming at a child and asking them for this, instead of coming at an adult who might have more skepticism toward the system.
Well, but the other thing I was going to say is, and I think this has been documented with a lot of his child soldiers, is when you have been so imprinted on something like that, especially from such a young age, and then that facade falls apart, there's kind of two ways you can go. One of which is to become incredibly there's three. It is possible, absolutely, to get to kind of a healthy place with it, but often two of the first directions someone might go. One is to become just incredibly cynical and about the world, and sort of see all of it as false and lies. But the other is to have this real hunger to imprint on something else. And so especially, it feels very believable to me that someone like Kovac, who's just had so much of his world stripped away, so much of everything he's come to believe in stripped away, a week later he meets a new figure who kind of gives him the same promise that the Seatac soldier gave him. You can be a soldier in my army. We are fighting for a good and noble and just cause. I understand your pain. I recognize your pain. I want to help make your pain go away and help you make the pain of other people go away. And again, I don't know if I'm going too deep, but it certainly seems like, in terms of the role they play for him, Falconer is playing a very similar role to the Seatac guy who first recruited him.
That's a very good point. Very good point. And for now on this television show, I think we're supposed to be fully on Team Falconer, and I think maybe it'll remain that way forever. But I do think that some of those things she said about sort of systems of control of the people you need to use, like those things are rough, and it's going to be interesting to see if that if there is some questioning of Falconer, and I think he's going to have to. If this show is the kind of show I like, I think he's eventually going to have to become realize that everyone in his life, pledging blind allegiance to anyone is not probably the way to go.
I think that's exactly where he has to come down to it. So, what did you think of Falconer's plan? If death doesn't really exist anymore and it's causing huge problems, is the answer to just kind of shut off that technology for everyone and make everyone have to die at 100 years old?
It's nice. I like the symmetry of it. You could debate about the number, and I'm sure there'd be interesting things to be said. But and like he said, they're very likely that the Meths would find a way around it. Of course, at this point, we don't even know that there are Meths. We just don't even know. We don't know how many generations in we are.
Yeah, I think the idea is supposed to be that at that point, we are starting to see things like kind of think about what the super rich are like in our world. We have a situation that is significantly worse than that at Falconer's time, but still nowhere near as bad as what becomes the Meths by the present day in that story. Yeah, it's a hard one because I think she's right about how fucked up the whole world has become because of what's happening. I think she's right that kind of immortality can so often lead to this incredible corruption. What I'm not sure about is, does it have to? I think it probably does, but I'm not sure. And does that justify making this decision for everybody else on the planet or in the whole universe?
Well, and also, it still greatly affects what a human is, which is kind of her logic. Well, she doesn't like the inequality, but she also talks about she's fighting to get humanity back, and it still greatly affects what a human is if everyone has exactly 100 years. If you're dying at 100, and this still doesn't stop everyone from jumping bodies. It still doesn't stop all this stuff. It just you're dying in 100 years. So what does that mean? What does that do for the last 10 years of your life? What does that do? What psychologically are the effects of knowing that you're going to die at this exact point?
Right. Well, and it's also I wish they had gone more into what they teased a couple episodes ago about how this is all based on alien technology. Because I'm guessing part of the idea is supposed to be that she kind of found this alien technology and figured out how to turn it into our own stack sleeve system. But I want to know more about that, especially because what I don't know is, did she really come up with this whole stack sleeve idea just based on technology that was used by aliens for something else? Or, as I think happened, maybe the aliens had a stack sleeve system as well, but they also had a society that was completely built around it, or they had a completely different metabolism, or in some ways this stack sleeve system worked for an alien culture because something about their metabolism or their society was so fundamentally different than ours that they could handle this kind of immortality.
Possibly, but we also know their society didn't survive. So I think that's a clue that maybe this stack technology didn't work for them either. But we do see a little more of that world in that we see the tree, which we've seen a shot of that tree in a previous episode when he's looking at the book, which a really cool thing this episode, we found out that the poem that was written in the book in the first episode, when he looks at it, that's a poem that he wrote in that book, which I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah, that was a good comeback.
And yeah, totally agree. And we see the tree, and then he talks to his sister about the roots of these trees, how they go deep in the world, and he wonders if it's part of the infrastructure that was the elders had built. And we're getting little clues as to what these elders might have been or whatever.
Right.
These mystical trees with this like glowing roots. It makes me think like, what if their consciousnesses are still around? Because that mystical looking glowing roots look a lot like the stack technology to me. Makes me wonder if they all, like, instead of dying off, maybe they all became trees or something, like, you know, they all decided to merge or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a science fiction novel that I love called Speaker for the Dead that uses, or no, I don't know if it's Speaker for the Dead or Xenobite. It's one in the Ender series by Orson Scott Card, which has, the author has hugely problematic in a lot of ways, but that one idea of it's basically the idea that, like, when your body dies, you're used to fertilize this tree that will grow in the remains of your body.
Which you can do now, by the way. Did you know that?
Say again?
You know, you can do that in our world today.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that.
That's one of the ways you can dispose of your body is to order a tree that grow, like you are turned into fertilizer for a tree that you can plant, which is strange.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's I don't know what we're doing with that tree, especially because the first time we saw the tree, it was on Earth in the office of Bancroft.
Well, when you see that tree, he has a flash of the tree that we see in this episode. There's like a flashback, just a little clip of him, like, I've seen these trees before kind of moment.
Right, but I'm just saying, but the fact that they exist in Bancroft's home or in his compound, whatever it is, on Earth.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me wonder, like, how did it get back there? Did they find a way to transport it? Is it a technology thing? And so that has something to do with, you know, how often he recasts or needle casts or whatever it is.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible.
There's a lot there to explore.
To me, it seemed like there's some sort of the reverence, and this is purely meta, I guess. The reverence that the main character has for those trees, and just the way the camera's angles, and the reverence that the show has for those trees, it makes me feel like there's they're alluding to some sort of mysticality to those trees, like something more powerful to them than we realize yet. And if that's the case, and it could just be that they're a symbol of the elder community that we're going to find out more about later, maybe. But if that's the case, if there's some sort of like almost spirituality to them or mysticality to them, I have a feeling that might be lost on Bancroft.
I'm gonna put out a guess that that's something we explore more in season 2. Just because there's so many other big questions for us to wrestle with, and I think we only have 2 episodes left in this season.
Well, now we're getting on this like really interesting. 3 more episodes this season. We're getting on this really interesting moment where now we have these siblings that are at odds, and it's like a classic, like, you know, I don't know, almost Star Warsian trope, just like the family that has gone down different paths and is now like against each other. And it's fun, and they've done it in a way that I totally believe it. And I just really like it. And we don't know how he's going to react. First off, let me say, you mentioned the thing that you thought was strained believability. The thing that strained believability for me in this episode was that she left those pods where he could find them so easily.
Yeah, I can see that.
The pods with all her other bodies, which we find out that she's apparently the crime, we're assuming crime boss that Demi the twin and Mr. Lung were working for.
Oh, I didn't get that at all. What makes you think that?
One of the bodies in the in the thing was the body that Mr. Lung was reporting to.
Interesting. Okay,
So
I was wondering. I was having trouble seeing the bodies through the glass on those things. I wonder if my screen dimness might have been set a little too low.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, when he sees that body, it does a flashback of the internet cafe where that guy attacks him in VR. And so she is apparently in charge of the people who attacked and rescued Demi the twin. So she's pretty deep in the current plot. She's also the child who met him at the Battle of Stronghold VR, and she's also the snake lady who put someone in a snake illegally. and that's just all. That's three really crazy characters for her to have been this season already.
Yeah, it just so breaks my head. I'm still having trouble wrapping myself around this idea of like just different personalities and different sleeves and it being so free and all over the place. Yeah, I mean, the more like I want to be able to sort of feel for her as like a sympathetic, like a person who just made a horrible mistake. But once you combine that she may well have like caused the attack or facilitated the attack that actually started the Battle of Stronghold, and all these pretty terrible things she's done since, like, I can have a lot of sympathy for her and what she was going through, but she's heading pretty close to kind of like the big bad of the season in some way or another, at least a serious villain.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like she sounds like she might be part of the system that has been behind everything. This system that we've been hearing about, or she's fighting it in her own way. But the whole thing with her being the guy who Mr. Lung is reporting to is what's really breaking my brain about her character and what she means to the rest of the story. Really wild.
Yeah. So what actually happened in that spaceship? Because my interpretation is that like the thing she squeezes is kind of setting off a signal, and it's kind of like a way of telling like whatever protectorate ship is high above, like here's where I am, like fire your lasers tracked on the symbol. Is that kind of the feeling you got?
That is one possible interpretation for sure. It seemed on a rewatch that like her, or when they showed it again, when she squeezes it, it seemed that actually like sent the lasers out of the ship almost. One of the lasers almost seems like it comes from the ship. And I can't tell, but either way, her squeezing that brought him down with the power of the Seatac officers or whatever. So yeah, I didn't get exactly what happened, but you're right. That is another interpretation. I thought it was some sort of like laser grenade that she was using to destroy the ship, but you may be right. It could have been some sort of signal to the Seatac of where to fire.
Right.
Man, that was awful.
It could be either one.
When he says you didn't get her,
we want to see explored a lot more.
Yeah. When he says you didn't get her, you'll never get her. He has such faith in Falconer and her ability to defeat everything. And you know that, oh man, this is all, I didn't even connect this, but earlier in the episode, she says she sneaked the sister after Falconer catches the knife. The sister grabs the knife, picks it up, and right before grabs a gun, picks it up very slowly and sneakily, and aims it at Falconer, and then Falconer fires and knocks the gun out of her hand. And Falconer says, "You have the right idea, but next time you have to move more quickly."
Yeah.
And what she's saying there is stealth and sneaking and getting someone when they're off guard is the way to catch them. Is the way to catch me specifically, is what she's saying. And like, then that's exactly what Rey does, is she catches her off guard by betraying her. Yeah.
Well, and it also puts a little bit of an interesting twist on what Kovacs is saying, because on some level they still never got her. You know, she got betrayed by someone inside. The Protectorate wasn't able to just hunt her down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's exactly what she's saying. She's saying, I can't be attacked, assaulted from the front. I'm too good at this. You have to get me from where I'm not looking or where I'm not paying attention. And then that's exactly what she does.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. I think we are about ready to wrap up. Do you have one or two more things you wanted to hit?
Let's see. They keep bringing up the Patchwork Man. And I don't think that that's a real thing. I think it's a horror story they tell children or whatever. But
I think so, yeah.
Since they keep doing it, I got to imagine if they do a season of this where they like really have some sort of villainous monster type bad guy, and he sort of takes on the persona of the Patchwork Man, would be like really fun and interesting. Let's see. Their last line we haven't really talked about. She says, I did it all for you.
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking, because he feels now he's going to take on that responsibility of feeling responsible for all these people's death, because he didn't see the sister. I mean, she says, he asked, "Do you trust me?" And she says, "Not even a little." So while he turned on all those Yakuza guys for her, and she did for him, but like she still never she's still having a hard time trusting, because while he was taken off and joined the military, which was a hard life, she was left in this horrible situation with no family, and the crime bosses took her, right, which is probably an even harder life than he's had.
Yeah, especially because I think there's a very fundamental difference that really affects their two positions, which is that he chose. He had
That's
agency.
true.
He decided to do this. She had no power whatsoever. And so I think, she may well have learned, like, it doesn't matter what I choose. I don't really have any choice. I don't have any power in the situation. And so I think that could help explain why he was able to kind of really jump in with both feet and believe in a way that she never was.
Absolutely. Last two things. I loved the scenery in this episode, the locations they chose, that bridge. It was just all so cool. They just did a good job scouting locations. I just loved it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
The scenery, the mountains, the forest, the cave they're in, it's all really, really beautiful. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, and this, I always talk about how fight scenes don't mean much to me unless they have stakes. I love this one moment they did where, like, Takeshi was not coming back from his needle cast.
Yep.
And they made that moment so tense with almost no fighting, no nothing. It was just the idea that he might have been left behind, and there's this character that you don't really trust who might have been responsible. And, like, even though I know he's coming back, like, it made me feel really tense in that moment.
Yeah.
For, like, is this the moment they lose him? Is this the Battle of Stronghold? Or are we about to find out? Like, it was super tense, and I just love how little they did there action-wise. They don't show the actual battle. They come back to just them getting out of their pods, but the acting and writing is so good that it really made me tense, and I loved that. That's all I got.
It was very good. Let me just say on that,
yeah,
I loved also the moment that came later because, DeSoto has been saying from the beginning he doesn't trust this guy. He doesn't relate to him. He doesn't think they're okay. And then I feel like this wonderful thing happens where at first DeSoto was saying, like, I don't trust you. I don't want you here. And so I'm going to be an asshole to you because I want you to leave. Mm-hmm. And then later, what we basically find is DeSoto saying, now I think you are part of the team and I'm going to welcome you as part of the team. But I actually am an asshole and I'm still going to be an asshole to you. But I'm going to do it in a way where it's like, you're my brother. I'm going to give you shit for fucking up instead of, you're the guy I don't want here, and I'm going to give you shit because I think you should leave. Like, to me, that moment of him, like, coming at him, but then offering him the drink and sitting next to him, like, that was really powerful for me because that was a moment of DeSoto saying, like, yeah, I'm never, like, Smiles huggy guy. I'm not that for anybody. But now I believe you're part of us.
Yeah, and I love the moment of passing the flask. That exact moment happens in the movie Serenity between two characters who've never really trusted each other. And then
you're right, yeah.
They pass the flask, and it's a moment of like, oh, the team is the team now. Oh, I love it. And yeah, this was almost exactly from that, and I love that.
Yep.
Well, anything else you got a point you want to touch on?
No, just that I'm, like, pretty excited to see Friday is going to be a good day because I think there's just so much to explore.
Absolutely. 100% agree. I can't wait. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We're Bingers Assemble. We will be back with you soon. And if you want to support us and be a part of the Netflix Party Watch, go to patreon.com/MCUcast or patreon.com. Is it Superhero Ethics? Is it /Superhero Ethics?
Yep.
Patreon.com/
That's also where we can find the podcast under that name.
Yes, Superhero Ethics. That's his podcast. It's a great podcast. They cover all kinds of geeky stuff.
Thank you.
And it's really, really great. Y'all should check it out. We'll be back with you guys real soon. Thank you very much. Peace.
Oh, shit. There was something I was going to say as the ending line. I have that. Okay. I'm going to put this in here and just cut it in right after right after you say peace. Good talk.
That's painful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good job, man.
Thanks,
cool.
you too, buddy.
Well, I'll talk to you Friday, I guess.
Sounds good. I'm going to save this and get it uploaded. Talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks, man. Talk to you later. Bye. And bye, Livecast. Thank you for listening if you were hanging out on